Welcome to Canvas of the Heart, presented by Free Arts for Abused Children of Arizona. The mission of Free Arts is to transform children's trauma to resilience through the arts. This show is a collection of conversations that spotlight the ways Free Arts creates hope for children and teens who've experienced abuse, neglect, or homelessness. We hope you find this show to be informative, inspiring, and fun. Welcome back to Canvas of the Heart. I'm Matt, and I am joined by a very special guest today on our podcast. This is Kris Kollasch, Phoenix artist, and quite frankly, Free Arts legend. Welcome, Kris.
Hi, thank you.
How about that introduction?
I liked it. That was good. That was good. Yeah, I've been around a while, so.
An important part of Free Arts is our relationship with the professional artist or the art community.
Yes.
And I think we are wanting to create space in this podcast to talk about the arts in and of themselves. I'd love for you to start us off by telling us about your personal story in the arts. How did you discover your art forms? What's art been for your life? I know those giant questions.
Yeah, giant questions. Art is my life, I guess, is the best way to put it. I think I've always been doing art, and I've been very fortunate to grow up in a family where fortunate to grow up in a family where we didn't have a lot of money, and so we got very creative. And the opportunities to make things and build things were always there and always encouraged. My father was a photographer when I was little, and tied his own flies, fishing, and we just made things that were recycling from the very get-go. And so I kind of grew up like that. And, for a hot minute, I thought maybe I'd be a clown in the circus or a magician, but I gave up those.
I feel like a clown in a circus.
Yeah, well, and I feel like a magician making a living out of art. But that's the magic of it too, it really is. And so I just got more and more involved in art. And somewhere around junior high, I chose to take art class in the summer instead of join the softball team. It was kind of like, okay, we got money to do one or the other. What are you going to do? And that's when I started taking art classes and got a little more serious about it, and was fortunate to have a really good, strong art program through high school. I took everything from lapidary and making stone stuff to ceramics and drawing and ink, and we had like a live rooster in our art room where we were sketching it and stuff. And so just a lot of really good encouragement there. And then I went off to college. I got a degree in art education. And part of that was because it was the practical route to go. I know there's a lot of really talented artists through history who never went to school. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of schooling who aren't that good. So, I thought, let's get something practical. And so after college, I moved to Phoenix from Colorado, and it was the middle of the school year, and I really wasn't planning to teach. It was sort of the backup plan, and I ended up liking it during my student teaching, but they weren't ready to hire anybody new. So I moved down here and got a job working for a design fabrication company. I built architectural and topographical scale models for them, and eventually became part of management, and just learned so much about how to make things and different materials and working with clients and those kinds of relationships that eventually I was driving through the back parking lot. I just remember the day because I had to lock up the building, and I'm driving away, and it's like, man, I love my job. I got to quit, because I knew that was going to be that was going to either be the road I would go, or I would pursue my life as an artist. But there wasn't the space to do both.
It was like a choice between two things you're enjoying, but you can't commit 100% to both.
Right. And so 1995, I made the commitment to quit. And I had made the commitment like a year before, and used that year. In my head, I was like, okay, by next Halloween, I'm going to quit my job, because I kind of believe in Halloween, that it's the opportunity to be whatever you want to be. And so that was my deadline. And it was a little slushy because my boss didn't want me to quit. So did a little contract work, I started my own business in 1996. And so, over 25 years later, I'm still doing it. I'm still self-employed, and sometimes that looks really good, and sometimes it's like, I need to hustle up another job. But I wouldn't trade it for anything, because it gives me a lot of, freedom to be who I want to be. you know, and so that's a really, I think, what a lot of artists are striving for. But so
authenticity and then self-support.
Yeah, self-support. And then I was really lucky that I kind of grew up in my 20s to early 30s in a company that supported me as an artist. And being in management, I learned things like I went to Toastmasters. So learned some public speaking. I wrote contracts. I had to do budgeting. I had to manage people. All the things that helped me to step out on my own and run my own business successful. So...
Right. So it sets you up. And that's often what happens for people when they like have a hobby they turn into a job, is the job part, the management part is too hard or is not at all the fun.
Right. Well, and that's not the part they teach you in school.
Yeah.
It's not the part they teach you in art school, at least, you know, and they're just starting to get a little bit more art management. And but it's not always how, you know, artists forever have that stereotype of, you know, not being able to be both, be creative and you know, there's just a lot of bad, you know, things that have been like, okay, they're not going to be able to think their way out of a box, but they can paint it. You know, it's like, no. I want to do all of it. We got a really big brain in there, and we should use it all. You know?
And the arts does untap that.
Right, yeah.
We had this experience earlier this week. Some of us on staff went down to talk to a very large group that was obviously doing serious stuff for their business in headspace.
Right.
Then we did some art, and watching the switch was interesting because some people were ready to switch and some people couldn't do it. And like how much you can see like there's probably a little bit of repetition, like people who can make that creative switch in their work blended easier with it, but it was a struggle for others.
Yeah. And I think we're raised that, you know, you're either going to be an accountant, you know, you go one way or the other, but not always encouraged to use our whole brain, you know, that so many people say, oh, I'm not creative. I can't be creative. It's like, no, actually you can, you know, maybe just look different than the person who's going to take a bunch of paints and put it on the wall.
Yes.
You know?
And I think that's a great message for our whole audience, because there are artists like you where if I give a tour, I have to mention you 3 times at least because it's on the wall. It tells the story. Yeah. Your art is that powerful. And then we say there are no mistakes in art. And then we do things like warm up the crowd by saying, share your favorite art form. And so people are struggling like,
what does that mean?
I don't know if I'm creative enough.
Yeah.
And it's like, come back to like, what do you create at all? Even this podcast could fall into that category and help people kind of see that creativity is really around the corner in anything that they're doing if they open up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that helps settle some people who believe immediately that they have to compare their quality of art to another and believe that's the way to fit in.
Yeah, definitely not. And that's always been a great thing that, you know, we're going to talk about a little bit is like how, you know, there's no right way to do art. There's no wrong way to do it. It's all about that self-expression and it's going to look different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you made the job switch, sounds like it's around that same timeline you've moved to Phoenix.
Well, so no, I made the job switch. I moved to Phoenix right after college, so I'm older than I look. So I moved here after college and worked for this company. It was called Habitat, not Habitat for Humanity because they were definitely for profit. But we worked a lot in the housing industry that was booming at the time and working with marketing centers and things like that. And so I worked there for about 11 years, and that's when I decided, okay, it's time. And it's interesting because that was very simultaneous with the time I got involved with Free Arts. Because I met Stephanie Small, who was our first executive director. I think I talked to her about this 6 months ago, or before you and I talked last, to confirm when it was. Because like, it wasn't really that long ago. It was like 30 years ago, about fall of 1994. I met her at an art event, and I was just really hungry to get involved with something with community. And that's how I stepped right into it, right as Free Arts was kind of stepping out too, and did my very first Free Arts Day right around the holidays that year. And that's been it. And so it was nice because as I was leaving my job, I had the opportunity to talk about Free Arts to all the people I worked with there too. Did a little thing at an employee meeting or something, and tried to get other people on board too. So already
bringing in resources.
That's right.
Sharing the word. Tell us about the early days. What I loved hearing from you is just like what we did became a thing that we talk about now as a program.
Yeah.
So what were the early days like in forming and experimenting, figuring out what worked?
Well, luckily there was, a core team of like 3 people that were developing a lot of that and creating some of the systems, or, the Free Arts Days was one of the things we did pretty early on, along with mentoring. And when I first got involved with being a Free Arts mentor, you committed to 20 weeks of going into a group home or a shelter working with kids with art. And we didn't have, like now I know there's a book that kind of helps guide you in maybe some of the intention of the work, whereas then it was more about just going and doing art with kids with the understanding that art heals. That's from the very get-go, that's been who we are and what we believe. And it was not that we are art therapists, but that we believe that art is therapeutic. And so along with that, the mentoring aspect, art heals, mentoring works, and every child matters. Those have been the 3 things all along. And when I was a mentor, a lot of times as an adult, a caring adult, I was the most consistent adult in that child's life, those 20 kids or 16 or 8 or whatever was at the group home. Because over those 20 weeks, their counselor had changed, their staff had changed, every adult in their life had changed. And then when they find out that this person who shows up week after week with a handful of art supplies and lets these kids express themselves in ways that maybe they're not allowed to with just staff, they realize you're doing it for what? You're volunteering. You're not getting paid to do this. And that, even for some of the young ones, made a huge difference because they realized then you're just here because you care. And that impacted the kids as much or more than the art, I think, and the art became this other element that helped them to express things and maybe heal on a different way. But just, we all need caring adults, caring humans in our lives to outweigh all the crap.
Yeah, it's a powerful combo, and it's not worth dividing at one point. Is it the art or the relationship? They're the same, right? Because art is a platform to explore relationship with yourself, and then when displayed in some way or shown or shared, it's communicating something. Yeah. And people have their own response to it too, and they're all separate things.
Yeah.
And that's a unique power of what art can bring. You talked about art heals and the fact that it does. What does that mean to you? How is it shown up for you in your work and in your life, and even in the free arts spaces where you've worked in programs?
Well, I think for me personally, it sort of has been a part of my being, but then, as I was a teenager, as my parents are getting divorced, as, my life is sort of having to self-manage because my parents are, kind of consumed with their own life. They're young adults trying to figure out what they're supposed to do, and they kind of figure, she's old enough, she can figure it out, or whatever. But, we're angst teenagers. We have all this stuff going on, and it became an outlet for me. And some of that was poetry, and then some of it was painting, and I did a lot of sculpting and working with clay in high school and stuff. And so those elements just helped me to heal and helped me to have a place to, it's like journaling, but maybe in a different form. It's a way of being able to put out how I feel in a way, sometimes publicly, sometimes privately, that maybe nobody ever sees. And just understanding the power of how that could help me has always translated. And then as I've gotten into doing my own art, a lot of this has been with free arts and working with youth and seeing the change. You really see this in some of the free arts programs, like some of our camps and our theater camps, where you have a chance to work with a child a little more intensely over the course of a number of days or something. You see this blossoming. And I've always been just a really strong proponent of our theater camp, because that's the one camp where we get to work with these youth very intensely for 2 weeks at a time. And we are building skills that they're going to be able to take with them professionally for interviews or whatever, because these kids are just like shut down. You can hardly get them to say their name loud enough to understand who they are. And then by the end of 2 weeks, they're on a stage in front of 300 people saying it loud enough to not even need a microphone, of who they are and what their story is. And there's power in that. And so seeing that and then using that to kind of elevate everyone in the room. And so I've just seen that in a lot of ways. And then I do a lot of my own, personally, I do a lot of public art, and I get a lot of people involved in the project. And whether that's healing or community building, it gives people a way to come together too. And so this is no longer my piece of art, it's our piece of art. And I'm looking at the piece that's right behind you. This was a public art, it was a group piece that was done all around about the story of the Giving Tree. But, we brought everybody's pieces together and kind of wove them together. So it's no longer my art or your art, but it becomes our piece of work, and they can all have pride in that.
Yeah. And so we just had a conversation about the artwork behind me, and we were like looking at it because it's up in the right corner. We're like, when did this start? And it's 2011. So, that's the other fun thing is there are sometimes ways to spot when it was done.
Right.
And it tells a story of that time, right? Mm-hmm. So you're in a specific partner, specific group. Plus, the chances are those that worked on this are well into adulthood at this point.
Yeah.
But it's like it's its own kind of time capsule in a way of that moment. It's a pretty interesting thing about free arts as you tour it. So for those that have not toured our facility, you're always welcome to do so. Just contact us. But if you come to our central office, you'll see several art pieces done by Kris that really help tell the story. So when we give tours, it talks about our programming really at a high level of impact, and the art tells the story really at an important level.
Every time you donate to Free Arts, something amazing happens. How? Let's paint a picture. Each penny we receive helps us deliver trauma-informed arts programs in a safe space where children can express themselves. We partner with more than 40 different child welfare agencies, a community that reaches over 17,000 children annually. So when you give, you help us turn trauma into resilience. Visit freeartsaz.org to donate and transform countless lives today.
I want to also celebrate the fact that you've been involved with free arts for as long as you have. And I'm curious, how has it affected you? What does it mean to you now in reflection of that?
Well, free arts has been my family, so you kind of gave me this question ahead of time, and I started thinking about it. And there's so many things. Being involved in free arts and working with the youth and the demographics, the people, they're in homeless shelters. They're in places that, all of a sudden you become very thankful for what you have and what you had. And, I went through a few hardships and wrote some poems, but I never had to endure the kinds of things that a lot of our youth have to endure. And yet they still succeed. They still thrive. They still have things that they need to work out, but can do that and get through it. And so that there's just a whole lot of gratitude I have for my own life that makes we can get in our own little pity parties and then be like, no, actually don't, you can do this, you can survive, and find the tools to do that. And so that's one piece, is just like getting involved with these youth, and giving back a piece of what you have. You get so much. I know, one of the free arts things, give love, get love, and it's karma. You invest in these kids and in the programs and in giving back to the community, and community becomes part of your life too in giving back. And so for me, there's been, I've had business opportunities, whether that be working on public art pieces and stuff, but then I also have some of my very best friends are people that I've been involved with free arts since the very beginning. I'm getting together with several of those people now. I have a shared peach tree with Linda Pullinsi, who's still a mentor and has been probably as long as I have been too. And so for me too, there's these lifelong relationships that have been built here through staff and through mentoring, and then even youth that I'll run into here and there. It's like, hey, what's going on? And that's really great to see them out there. Yeah,
it has staying power, and it's the strength and the quality of the relationships here. And it's a cool vibe in that when you run into people that's committed to it, without saying it, there's some things in common. Yeah. Right? There's a caring for the world. There's a caring for yourself. There's an appreciation of creativity and beauty. And and sometimes even an acceptance of what we're creating is just what it is today.
Yeah.
Those are all kind of anchoring things for people. That's really powerful.
Well, and I want to just emphasize our alumni, the kids who have aged out of the program, that so many of them stay involved with free arts. And had an event in October, and Ellis, who's one of our alumni who has his own catering business now, he brought us lunch. I ordered lunch from him, and what was so cool is that when you opened up your lunchbox, it had an affirmation card. Mm-hmm. And that's something we do with free arts a lot, is we write these affirmations and we hand them out to our youth, and realize that sometimes just a little note that says, you're really awesome, is a good thing. So you get that with your meal too. And it's like, what a beautiful treat that was to find that and to know where that came from.
Yeah.
That came from here.
Yeah, those are cards that we have collected. We still make them from time to time. We did definitely develop a library of them because it was for many people during the pandemic, the only way they could volunteer. And so even as I started a couple of years ago, we'd have college students come with their box. Like, they needed hours for their class.
Oh, yeah.
They needed something they could do in the middle of the pandemic. They couldn't go do in-person volunteering, so they wrote a lot and decorated a lot and of affirmation cards. So it's a very brief statement. Some of them are done in 2 languages, so Spanish and English. We just pulled one up for a guest this morning, and they grabbed one out of
very cool.
the donor wall, and we're like, wow, it's in English and Spanish. We were also getting these from, I think, 40-ish of the 50 states. Like, people were sending them to us during that time period.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a simple note that it kind of reminds you, if you've had this experience when you're a kid, of, your parent packing your lunch for you and you find a note inside of it, right? And you're like, oh, I hope my friends don't see this, but I also really glad that my mom does love me, that kind of thing. And that's what that is. That affirmation card is that reminder that somebody is thinking of you, even if they haven't met you today or seen you today.
Right.
And those are really cool things.
But it was just awesome to see that trickle down to one of our alumni who's sharing that with the rest of the world.
Yeah, and there's many, because we serve between 5,000 and 7,000, depending on the type of program structure. But over that time period, it's up to 165,000. That's how many people are out there that have some, even if it's just for one day, exposure or experience with free arts. They're out there, and we hear from them, and it's wonderful. So drop us a line if that's you listening to this today. I wonder if you could talk us through some of your favorite projects. I know that favorite might be a tough word about art projects, but what are some of the things that stand out to you as memorable, or things you want to tell us about?
Well, one of the really awesome projects that I had the opportunity to work on was for the Florence Crittenton mural that is the Trees Like Me. And I know we have a big reproduction of it downstairs, but also just recently reinstalled that mural, which is 8 feet tall by 20 feet wide, down on the building at Florence Crittenton. And I don't remember how many years ago we actually did the project. But what was great about that project is I got to collaborate with Linda Pullinsi, who did a professional artist series with these girls where they painted on canvases that were about 12 inches or 10 by 30 or something like that, images of trees. And the whole exploration of that was like, what would I be like if I looked like a tree, or if I was a tree? What kind of tree would I be? Would I be strong? Would I be wispy? Would I have fruit hanging from my tree? And I think there was 10 different images that were all very unique, and a couple girls made them to where they had monkeys swinging from the trees that met in the middle, and just all these different things. And so Linda had created these with these girls. And then we took those images, and I then stepped in and figured out, how can we take these images and somehow make them into one cohesive picture? And it was a really fun way to talk about collaboration with these girls. And some of them had a really hard time with that, but others of them were like, oh yeah, let's do this, and let's put this word in and put that word in. And so we worked together to create a design. And some of that was give and take. I kind of came and put it all together and brought it back, and they're like, no, I don't like that over there. I don't want that on my panel or whatever. But then we painted these really big 4 foot by 8 foot panels that all met together to create these 9 or 10 images. And through the course of that project, some of the girls just couldn't let go of the ownership of theirs, and so kind of bowed out. But then there were other girls who were excited to come in and help just paint on this project. So it became a collaboration with even more girls than we started with. And some of the kids maybe who originally started, they left the facility, and we had different people. And so the number of these girls that worked on the project grew. And it was fun because it just became a big project, and even now is making an impact because, it has a lot of positive messages in there, and it has some reality in there about hurt and pain and the things that impacted those girls and how they viewed their trees, them as a tree. But all in all, it was thriving, and it was beautiful, and it was strong. And
this mural was made by and is installed at the same location where prior participants lived, right?
Right. Okay. Yes.
So it's been several years, but that's, in a way, their experiences that might be coming out in the mural might be relevant to those who see it every day.
Yeah. Well, it was great about that mural is we did it on site there. We had a rack that we were able to store these big panels in and brought them out every week until we had it done. And then it got hung on a very public building. Florence Crittenton, for a long time before the pandemic, had a thrift shop called Flows on 7th, which is right around Indian School. And we had that mural hung on the south side of that building. So everybody who's sitting at that light right there at Indian School could see that mural. And so it became a very public piece for many, many years. And then after the pandemic, the business went away. And so we pulled the mural down, eventually refurbished it, and rehung it back at the facility, which is on the wall of the building where we did the panels originally.
Tell us a little bit about trees. This is one thing I've learned a lot from you because trees are all over the art in free arts, and there's one behind me. But it seems to have, from your description, shown up and then people go with it. But trees show up for free arts, and what does that mean?
Well, I think trees are a good symbol of growth. They're a symbol of strength. You think about these, the mighty oak tree that grows from a little acorn, but I think about the doggone Chinese elm trees that grow from this little seed where I have 5,000 of them on my back door right now. But that, how trees are prolific, and they just want to grow. They just want to grow, and they want to become these things that create shade, and they create so many things. And so when I think about trees, it's a very good parallel to life. We are trees. We are growing from the roots of what's beneath us. And sometimes that's not very stable. And so we don't always get a good footing, but that's what we're looking for good footing. And I think some of free arts does that. It gives kids some stability and something to believe in. And maybe that's just themselves, but that allows them to thrive.
There's a pretty powerful mantra here in the free arts universe where we say that there are no mistakes in art.
Right.
What's that mean for you?
For me, art has, I think, always been just about creative self-expression. I'm probably I don't micro-examine my own art. And I kind of have a saying that, people are sometimes, how do you know when it's done? And it's like, when it's sold and it's at your house, I don't think I can come paint on it anymore. Until then, it could evolve into something else. And, you can always paint over it. So I just don't sweat it because it's not a mistake, it's a process. And if we could look at life that way, no, this isn't a mistake. So I tripped and fell. Next time I'm going to know there's a bump there and I'm going to step over it. Just those same things. If we realize, no, this isn't a mistake, so I don't like the way it looks, we'll paint over it. Make it something else. Maybe that dark blob becomes the hole of a cave where a bear lives, or, instead of just a muddy color. I don't know. So I think for me, art has always been that, and I just allow that to flow through me and don't have a lot of judgment about it.
It's an easy thing to say, but having, the experience of working here, saying it, watching people say it, and then immediately compare their art to others. It's such a powerful ideal and also a deep challenge for people, I hope, right? I think central to expressive arts as a therapeutic tool is self-compassion, and that whatever I create, can I accept it as is, and without comparing, and to learn to notice all the thoughts and feelings that come with, comparing to other people. And that's why I'm not shy about when people go like, Matt, what's your art form at Free Arts? You work there, and I'm like, sarcasm, I think. Podcasting, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
But I can embody that. I will try what's in front of me, and I will notice the feelings that are there with whether I think it's good or not. sometimes that's enough where we have to tell the audience, like, we want to show what people have created, and if you don't, you can just turn yours over and you'll get people who turn it over.
Right.
Like they can't tolerate it.
Well, and I know that, like, just because I create art the way I do, it doesn't mean I don't compare myself. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean I don't look at other people's murals sometimes and like, oh, dang, I wish that was mine. I wish. But what I try to do from it is, okay, if I was going to do this over, maybe I would do it more like that. So that next time, maybe I do it more like that. And I try to use it as a learning opportunity. And sometimes it's hard, because there's no mistakes, but it could be better. Okay. Sometimes that's true.
Yeah, we're adding a new skill.
Yeah.
And I think one of the metaphors about our lives in general is at some point we come to a place where whatever age we are, we're just capable to handle the things in our prior lives. So you are a 20-year-old who can help the 10-year-old version of you. And that might be true in the arts. Like you've developed new skills, new capacities. And so seeing and being inspired by other things adds to this future version of the things you'll create.
Yeah.
I hope that is part of what we do here relationally too, that we build that same kind of ability to recognize I'm in just a place now. It's different than the past, and I don't know the future, but I welcome that, as uncertain as that might feel, right? Yeah.
There was a kid, I don't know who it was, who did, there was this whole series that was displayed probably during it was a professional artist series, and these people created these dioramas. And I remember they were displayed over at the Scottsdale Performing Arts Center, probably along with one of the ballets one time. And this kid had it was like this path and with trees and different things. And along the path, it said, "The past is not my potential." Mm. And that has been one of these quotes that stuck with me. Like, the past is the past. And it happened, it impacts us, sure. But that does not define my potential. And the fact that there was some teenager in our program who had that kind of insight, it still kills me. It's still like, oh my gosh, past is not my potential.
That sums it up very powerfully. Yeah. I think I might borrow that.
Yeah. And it was a free arts gig, and it was like, wow. Yeah.
Well, we say all the time, mentoring changes 2 lives. So there is something we're getting as the adult involved.
Absolutely.
The artist involved. Mm-hmm. So as our send-off last question here, Kris, to the art community, to artists in general who might hear this, why should they become involved at Free Arts?
It's good for you. It's good for the soul. It's, we talk a little bit about the things that I've gotten through mentoring, the relationships with kids, the ability to teach, the ability to pass on somewhat of what we know, but also the ability to learn from these kids and how they survive maybe, and to have some of that, but also then the relationships that you get by being involved with Free Arts, from the other mentors and from the staff that's going to help guide you in becoming a mentor. Or there's also potential in financially, as an artist. Well, I can get paid to be a professional artist and work with youth. So it's not always mentoring, it's not always volunteering, but there are bigger projects that you can really pass on your skills, and there's opportunities in that, to grow as an artist and as a business person too. So there's kind of all these different ways that you can get involved and grow and benefit.
And you can get involved by finding us at freeartsaz.org. Kris, how can people find and contact you?
You can reach me through my website is artandenvironments.com. You can find me as Kris Kollasch on Facebook, or Art and Environments on Instagram, things like that. Or probably look me up in the phone book, but I might not answer that phone. I don't know.
Thank you, Kris, for joining us today. This is wonderful.
Oh, you bet. Thank you. It's a pleasure. My pleasure.
This is Canvas of the Heart. We are appreciative of all your support. If you enjoyed this show, please like and share it with someone in your network. And remember, there's always space for you to be a little creative in your day. And if you are so inclined, get involved with us at freeartsaz.org, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of Canvas of the Heart. We'd love to hear your questions and feedback by email at hello@freeartsaz.org. You can find more information about Free Arts by visiting our website at freeartsaz.org. We'd like to thank the many individual and corporate donors and the hundreds of volunteers that make Free Arts programs possible. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.